guys, we are going to learn the Pythagorean theorem. We're going to learn about finding the hypotenuse, finding a side, and if you're given three measurements, how do you know if it creates a right triangle or not? We've done these on our pods, so you're pretty used to them, but I'm still going to go over them and you can watch the practice and see how you do after this on the questions. So first, finding the hypotenuse. So to know which side is the hypotenuse, it's always the longest side and diagonal. It is always the one across from the right angle. So it's the one that goes side to side. It does not connect to the 90-degree angle. So we're going to be practicing finding the longest side. Okay, so I have 6 inches and 8 inches, and we're finding C. So the theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, 6 and 8 can go for A or for B. It doesn't matter because they're both sides. So let's do 6 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. So we do 6 squared, which means 6 times 6, not 6 times 2, which is 36. 8 squared, which is 8 times 8, is 64. And this equals c squared. Now, remember to always keep c squared here. We're solving for c squared. Don't add these together and put that here, or you'll get the last steps wrong. So we add these two together, 36 plus 64, that equals 100, which equals c squared. The last step is to inverse the square, which would be square rooting, and that helps you get rid of that square when we isolate c. The square root of 100 is 10, so the length of this side would be 10 inches. All right, next problem. 4 inches and 4 inches. So we're finding C again. Substitute A squared plus B squared equals C squared. It's an isosceles triangle, so these two sides are the same, but that doesn't mean that this will be an equal side. 4 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. Okay, 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, add these two together, you get 32 equals C squared. Last step is to square root, and that gets rid of that squared. And this time, you know, it's not a perfect square, so we're going to have to estimate the square root of 32. Now you can draw the thing that I usually do, where it's kind of a short number line. Okay, the square root of 32 is in between 5 and 6, so that means it's going to be about 5 point something. And now we just have to estimate the decimal. Square root of 25 makes 5, the square root of 36 makes 6. 32, so the square root of 32 is 7 away from here and 4 away from there. It is closer to 36, which is 6, than it is to 5, so it's going to be on the higher side. So a good guess or an estimate would be about 5.7 or 8. Okay? Next question. Okay. Here I have 5 and 15. Okay, so I have a longer side. I'm going to have to multiply a higher number, but you guys are completely able to do this. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay, 5 squared, which makes 25, plus 15 squared. So 15 times 15. That's 225. That's one of the highest perfect squares that you should know. Add these two together, we get 250. Okay, and we're going to have to estimate that square root. So the square root of 250, square root of 250. Okay, so 15 squared was 225. 16 times 16, we get 36. Carry 3. 6 times 1 plus 3 is 9, and then 0, 6, 1. That's 256. Okay, so it's in between 15 and 16. You can put together my little symbols that we use. So it's in between 15 and 16. Square root of 225, 256, okay? Square root of 250. It's going to be between 15 and 16, so it's going to be about 15 point something. All right, if I think 250 to 225, that's the difference is 25. Then 250 to 256 is only 6, so it is on the higher end. So a good decimal guess would probably be 15 point, maybe 8, but I would say that 9 is a better choice. So 15.9 centimeters would be the length of side C. Okay, now we're going to be finding a side. Okay, a side is any of the sides or the lengths that connect to the right angle. Okay, so the sides connect into the right angle so that you know if that's a side. So we're going to be finding A or B. Okay. First, I have 3 feet, my blank, my A or B, and then this is my C11. Okay, 11 is always going to be the longest side. So if you get a number down here that's bigger than 11, you've done something wrong because the hypotenuse is always the longest side. So let's figure out what this side is. So 3 squared plus B squared, like I said, it could be A squared plus 3 squared, does not matter, equals 11 squared. 3 times 3 is 9, plus B squared equals 11 times 11, 121. Okay, and now we have basically a 2-step problem. We're going to subtract 9 from both sides. This cancels out. Okay, 121 minus 9 is 112. Okay, and the last step is very similar to finding the hypotenuse. We're going to square root B and 112 so we can get rid of the square. And now we're going to have to estimate the square root of 112. Put my little symbols together. Okay, 112 is between 10 and 11, so it's going to be about 10 point something. Okay, 10 times 10, or the square root of 100 makes 10. This is 121. Okay, and the square root of 112, that is 12 away from 100, and then 9 away from here. So it is a little bit above half. So I would guess that a great estimate would be about 10.6 feet. So it is just a little bit smaller than the hypotenuse. All right, next one, I have 8, 6, and a side. So A squared plus 6 squared equals 8 squared. 6 squared, 6 times 6, 36. 8 squared, 64. Okay, so then I have to isolate A, so I'm going to bring around 36, I'm going to subtract it from both sides. These cancel out. Okay, 64 minus 36, this turns to 14, this turns to 5, whoop, so 28. Okay, and then we have to eliminate the square, so we're going to square root. So now we're going to estimate the square root of 28. Okay, the square root of 28 is between 5 and 6, so this side is going to be about 5 point something. The square root of 25 makes 5, the square root of 36 makes 6. 28 is 3 away. 8 to 36 is 8 away. So it is on the lower half. A good estimate would be about, I'd say 5.2 or 5.3, and I'm going to go with 5.3 meters. There we go. Okay. Next, I have incorporated some larger numbers. Now you do have your multiplication chart to help you. That's why I have this picture below. 30 miles, 20 miles. Okay, so we're going to substitute A squared plus 20 squared, because 20 is one of the sides, and then our hypotenuse and longest side is 30 miles. So this side should not be longer than 30 miles. Okay, Now 20 squared, 20 times 20, that's basically 2 times 2, but you add 2 zeros. 2 times 2, 4. And so adding 2 zeros, that would make that 400. Same thing with 30 squared, 30 times 30. You do 3 times 3, which is 9, and you add 2 zeros, so this would be 900. So we're going to isolate A, subtract 400 from both sides. A squared equals 500, and then we are going to square root 500, okay, to get A by itself. All right, now we're going to have to estimate the square root of 500. This is a good way to be using your multiplication chart. Okay, if we look at our multiplication chart, square root of 500. These are perfect squares, so we'd go to see where 500 is in between. So 400, 441, then I have right here, and then 529. So it's in between 22 and 23. We're in between 22 squared and 23, or 22 and 23. So it's going to be, this side's going to be about 22 point something. Right, this one is 529. And then with here, I believe that is 484. It's just hard to see, but it's 484. Okay, and then we're going to have to estimate. You pick the distances. It is from this number to this number. Okay, 500 to 84, we're 16 away, and then here to here, we're 29. Okay, we are closer to the lower half, so it's going to be a lower decimal. It's not completely right above, so I would guess this is about 22.3. So the length of this side is about 22.3 miles. So that's a good way to use your multiplication chart for this, especially for your answering the worksheet questions, okay? Because there are some higher numbers on there. All right. Next is knowing if 3 measurements of a right triangle equal a right triangle, if it does create a right triangle. So here I have 4 inches, 3 inches, 5 inches. The way to do that is to pick that the largest or the longest side is your hypotenuse. So this, I would have to know that this is my hypotenuse because it is the longest side. These two are the sides that create that. So let's figure this out. That if this is 4 inches, if this is 3 inches, will this be 5 inches? Will those 3 measurements create a right triangle? We're just going to do 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. And now we're going to square the numbers. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared, 4 times 4, 16. 5 squared is 25. Next, you add these two together, which is 19 plus 16, or 9 plus 16 is 25. That equals 25. They equal each other. They are the same number, so that creates a right triangle. Pretty easy. You just see that when this side added together after squared equals this side, or this hypotenuse, after it's squared. Okay? Next, I have 10, 11, and 20. Okay, you don't actually have to draw a triangle, but know that this can be A, this will be a B, and this will be a C because it's the longest side. So 10 squared plus 11 squared equals 20 squared. I squared 10 times 10. 11 times 11, or 11 squared. And then 20 squared, which is 20 times 20, is 400. I can add these two together. This makes 221. And that does not work because 221 is not 400, so that does not work out. So this would not, these three measurements would not be able to create a right triangle. All right, last I have 20, 21, and 29. Okay, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and this is c because 29 is the longest side. So 20 squared plus 21 squared, sorry, that's 21, and then 29 squared. Okay, 20 squared, okay, 20 times 20 I know is 400. Okay, 21 squared, you have that on your multiplication chart, but if you don't have it available, you just multiply. 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2, cross it out, put a 0, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, so 441. So this will be 441. And then 29 squared, same thing, because your multiplication chart only goes up to 25, so you are going to have to do 29 times 29, 9 times 9 is 81, carry my 8, 9 times 2, 18 plus 8, 26, cross it out, put a 0, 2 times 9, 18, carry my 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 1, or plus 1 is 5. Add these together, I get 1, add these together, I get 4, and then I get 8. So 841, 29 squared is 841. I add these together, 400 plus 441 would be 841, which equals 841, so that would create a right triangle. So these three measurements would create a right triangle. They would work. So that is how you use three measurements to find, if it's a right triangle, find the side and find the hypotenuse. So after this, go ahead and answer the 9 questions. Try to get a 7 out of 9. Okay, if you don't, then you go to the extra practice. But if you do get the 7 out of 9, then you can practice on the word problems and continue with the lesson. Okay, if you have any questions, come to me and raise your hand.